Dive teams have been searching Lake Piru since Thursday, a day after Naya Rivera vanished after boating with her 4-year-old son.
People often think that a famous person could never just disappear without a trace. But the reality is different. There are stars who once stood under blinding lights, who were called by millions of people, yet they left this world in complete solitude. Their bodies vanished for many days, many months, or even decades before being found. On the day they disappeared, everything seemed normal. The sky was blue. The clouds were white. The sun was shining. No one thought it would be the last day they'd be seen. No one knew where they had gone. No one knew what had happened, until their bodies were discovered. Some were left under cold water. Some were buried in the dry desert. Some were right inside their own garage, but nobody knew. Fame couldn't protect them from a cruel fate. The stories I'm about to tell are about 15 famous black people who died and whose bodies were found a very long time later. And the most horrifying part isn't the death itself, but the fact that no one knew it had happened long ago. 15. Albert Ayler, the saxophone genius who vanished and returned in a form that left an entire city stunned. Albert Ayler was one of the most influential saxophone players of the 20th century, a symbol of free jazz with his explosive style and groundbreaking albums like Spiritual Unity. He was often seen as the spiritual successor to John Coltrane. In early November 1970, he was living in a small apartment in Brooklyn, still a name that commanded respect in the jazz world. On the 5th, he suddenly disappeared without leaving any note or trace. His belongings were still in place, his clothes neatly folded in the closet, but the man himself had vanished from existence. In the days that followed, his family and friends were thrown into confusion. They searched desperately for him, reported him missing to the police, and asked the neighbors, but no one knew what had happened. It wasn't until November 25, 1970, that Albert Ayler's body was found floating in the East River, near the Congress Street Ferry Terminal, just a few hundred meters from his home. 20 days in the cold, polluted water had changed everything. His body was bloated from decomposition gases, his skin stretched tight and turned a mottled grayish green. Cracks ran along his torso. The skin on his hands and feet had peeled off in patches, exposing softened flesh that the water had turned mushy. Small creatures in the river had gnawed at his face, deforming his nose and ears and leaving horrifying empty gaps. His face was now so distorted it was barely recognizable. His eyes were cloudy and swollen. His hair was matted with mud and seaweed. His clothes were torn and disheveled, showing he had been repeatedly battered by the strong current. The stench of decay was overwhelming, spreading dozens of meters. Forensic staff had to wear specialized masks just to approach. The examination was difficult, and many details could not be clearly determined. Police concluded the cause was drowning, leaning toward suicide, but no one could say for sure what had really happened on the day he left. 14. James Jordan, the father of a legend who was found when everything was already beyond saving. James Jordan was a well-known public figure, the father who had a huge influence on Michael Jordan's legendary career. He frequently appeared in the media and was closely tied to his son's spotlight. On the night of July 23, 1993, he was driving alone on Highway 74, heading home after a funeral. The trip seemed completely normal, but it would be the final chapter of his life. He pulled over to the side of the road to rest. No one saw what happened next. No one heard any cries for help. There was only deep darkness and an eerie silence. His family had no idea he was missing. The fact that he often traveled without staying in touch had become normal. No one rushed to look for him. No one imagined the worst. No one knew that not far away, his body had already begun to decompose under the summer heat. On August 3, 1993, a body was discovered in a small creek in the Gum Swamp wetlands, South Carolina. The sight made everyone present violently sick. After 11 days in the hot, humid environment, James's body was severely deformed. His skin was bloated and turned a mottled blackish purple. Large blisters had formed everywhere, filled with cloudy yellow fluid. Maggots crawled all over his face, neck, and exposed skin. At first, his face was unrecognizable. His nose and lips were extremely swollen. His eyes had sunk deep, leaving 2 dark, empty sockets. His arms and legs were stiff and twisted from the prolonged decomposition in the swamp. His clothes were stuck to his skin, stained with black mud and rotting leaves. Police found no ID on him. The body was listed as unidentified. Due to lack of storage space, local investigators made a controversial decision. The body was cremated before its identity could be confirmed, a cold decision that nearly erased the last hope of discovering the truth. The only thing left was a few teeth that had been saved. It wasn't until August 13, 1993, 21 days after James disappeared, that the identity was confirmed through dental records. The name James Jordan surfaced again, but in a way that left everyone stunned. The subsequent investigation revealed a brutal truth. He had become the victim of a random carjacking. 2 teenagers had attacked him, then abandoned his body in the swamp once it had no value to them. 13. Lorenzen Wright, the basketball star found in the woods with a body that was no longer intact. Lorenzen Wright was a famous NBA star who played 13 seasons for major teams like the Los Angeles Clippers and Memphis Grizzlies. He was considered a symbol of Memphis for his generous personality and dedication to the community. On July 18, 2010, he left his ex-wife's house in Collierville, Tennessee, with no signs of trouble. But from that day on, he vanished completely. A man over 6 feet 7 inches tall, who stood out in any crowd, had disappeared as if he had never existed. The following days were heavy. The search was expanded. Family members were worried. Friends were anxious. All of Memphis was buzzing. But every effort led nowhere. No clues, no traces. On July 28, 2010, exactly 10 days later, the truth finally came to light. Lorenzen Wright's body was discovered in a dense wooded area on Callis Cutoff Road on the outskirts of Memphis. The scene left the search team speechless. The high summer temperature combined with the humid air had turned his body into a distorted mass. His skin had turned a mottled blackish purple. His stomach was so bloated and tight that it had burst open the buttons on his shirt. Bullet wounds through his chest and abdomen left large holes where insects had gathered in thick clusters. White maggots crawled out from inside, writhing in masses. His tall body lay fallen on the damp ground, arms and legs stiff and slightly twisted in an unnatural position. His hair was full of dead leaves and red dirt. His face was swollen, lips cracked, skin stretched as if it was about to tear. His eyelids had shrunk back, exposing cloudy eyeballs. The stench was so strong that people had to step back. The investigation results shocked people even more. Lorenzen Wright had been shot 11 times, a number no one expected. It seemed the killer wanted to make sure he had no chance of survival. The investigation dragged on for years. Suspicions, rumors, and leads kept changing. It took 12 years before the perpetrator was identified. The person behind the murder was determined to be his ex-wife, Shara Wright Robinson, who was charged with orchestrating the assassination. 12. Christian Atsu, the soccer star found after 12 days under the rubble. Christian Atsu was a famous midfielder who played in the Premier League for Chelsea, Everton, and Newcastle United. He became a beloved icon thanks to his talent and consistent contributions to the community. The night before the fateful day, he had just scored the winning goal for Hatayspor. The stadium erupted in celebration. No one imagined it would be the last time they saw him on the pitch. In the early hours of February 6, 2023, the ground shook violently. The 12-story apartment building in Antakya where he was resting collapsed in just seconds. Everything descended into chaos. His name immediately appeared on the list of missing persons. His family panicked. Fans around the world followed every search update. Rescue teams dug frantically through the concrete. At one point, news spread that he had been found alive. Hope surged powerfully, then faded when the truth didn't match. Each day passed slowly. Every hour felt endless. People desperately searched beneath the thick layers of concrete. On the morning of February 18, 2023, he was finally brought to the surface. Christian Atsu's body was found under hundreds of tons of concrete and steel. Getting him out had to be done with extreme care because the weight of the entire building had crushed his body. The process of removing the body took 5 full hours. His body parts had become brittle from the low temperature and prolonged pressure. Even a small mistake could cause further damage. His ribs and pelvis were shattered into many pieces. Large bruises covered the skin on his face, hands, and feet. The cold weather had slowed decomposition, but construction dust covered his entire body in a dull gray layer. Wounds from metal cuts left clear, dark streaks that had dried. His face was twisted to one side from the long compression. His mouth was slightly open, filled with white dust inside. His eyelids were swollen from the trauma. Christian Atsu's death at age 31 left an irreplaceable void in soccer and in the charitable work he was passionate about. That natural disaster also brought the collapse of hope and those brief moments of joy that were quickly extinguished. 11. Naya Rivera, the Glee star who vanished in the lake for 5 days. Naya Rivera was a globally famous actress and singer, best known for her powerful role as Santana Lopez on Glee. She became a beloved and widely respected figure in the entertainment industry. On the afternoon of July 8, 2020, she rented a small boat on Lake Piru to go out with her 4-year-old son. The trip started with joy. Gentle sunshine, clear water, peaceful surroundings. No one imagined that a few hours later, everything would be turned upside down. By late afternoon that day, her son was found sleeping alone on the boat. He was still wearing his life vest, but was completely soaked. The boat was drifting slowly in the middle of the lake. Naya was gone. A large-scale search was launched immediately. Helicopters circled overhead. Sonar equipment scanned the bottom. Dive teams took turns going into the water. Every square meter of the lake was carefully checked. People guessed she might be trapped somewhere among the rocks or caught in thick vegetation. Everyone still held hope that she might have survived. On the morning of July 13, 2020, exactly 5 days later, Naya Rivera's body surfaced on the lake. Experts believed her body had been caught under a thick layer of vegetation at the bottom. Once enough decomposition gases built up, it slowly rose to the surface. When she was found, her skin was pale white and wrinkled from being in the water so long. Her fingers were swollen, with thin layers of skin peeling off. Her face was slightly puffy, but still retained enough familiar features to be recognized right away. Her lips were deep purple, her eyes half closed, with the cloudy color of life that had ended inside. Her long hair spread out, floating with the water like black strands of seaweed. Her swimsuit clung tightly to her body, with a small tear at the shoulder from brushing against branches at the bottom. The fishy smell of the lake, mixed with the odor of decomposition, spread around. The rescue team had to cover their noses when lifting the body onto the boat. The final conclusion was that she died from drowning, and before sinking, she had used all her strength to get her son safely onto the boat. In her final moments, a mother chose to sacrifice herself to save her child's life. 10. Shad Gaspard, the WWE wrestler who dove into the water and was found days later after drifting. Shad Gaspard was a famous WWE wrestler, a member of the group Crime Time. He also succeeded in acting and worked as a bodyguard for many big stars. He was known as a strong and devoted man. On May 17, 2020, he was at Venice Beach in Los Angeles with his son. The ocean wasn't calm that day. There were big waves and strong rip currents pulling everything out to sea. In a moment of chaos, both father and son were swept away. Rescue personnel quickly responded, but in the strong, swirling water, they could only bring one person up first. Shad Gaspard immediately insisted they save his son without hesitation. That was his final act before another large wave hit, pulling him completely under. After that moment, he disappeared into the ocean. The following days were a tense search. Rescue teams swept along Venice Beach. Patrol boats moved constantly. Family and friends prayed together, but the sea gave no answer. The currents carried everything farther away. In the early morning of May 20th, 2020, an early morning walker discovered the body that had washed ashore near Venice Pier. It wasn't far from where he had disappeared, but the constantly changing currents had made it hard to find. His body lay still on the damp sand. A thin layer of white salt from the seawater covered his skin. Small bite marks from sea creatures appeared scattered on his arms and legs, mixed with bruises from hitting underwater rocks. His face still retained some of its familiar features, but his lips and eyelids were slightly swollen and turned a purplish gray. His hair was messy, full of sand and seaweed. His shorts were torn on one side, revealing long scrapes from friction. The current had carried him away, then brought him back, but only as a cold body. 9. Sadie Roberts-Joseph, the cultural icon who vanished and was discovered many days later in the trunk of a car. Sadie Roberts-Joseph was a prominent civil rights activist and cultural preservationist in Louisiana. She founded a museum on African American history and organized influential Juneteenth celebrations. On July 7, 2019, she left her house as usual. No one thought it would be the last time she was seen by anyone. Many hours later, contact was lost. Her family began to worry. A woman who was always punctual and clear about her plans had suddenly vanished without leaving any message. A missing person report was filed. Authorities quickly mobilized a search. The area around her home was swept, but there were no useful leads. As time passed, the feeling of unease grew stronger. On the afternoon of July 12, 2019, after 5 days missing, she was discovered in a situation many people could not accept. Her car was found parked about 3 miles from her house in Baton Rouge. There were no signs of disturbance on the outside. But when the trunk was opened, everything changed. Sadie Roberts-Joseph's body was curled up inside the confined space. The summer heat in Louisiana combined with the tight space had accelerated decomposition. Her body was horribly deformed. Her skin had turned a deep purple with many mottled patches. Large blisters had formed under the skin, many of them burst and messy. Her abdomen was greatly swollen, pressed tightly against the trunk lid. Her face was severely swollen, her features heavily distorted. Her cheeks and chin were stretched from internal pressure. Her eyelids were tightly closed and rigid. Her tongue had slipped out of her mouth, indicating she had died from lack of oxygen. Her arms and legs were curled in a fetal position. Her clothes clung to her body, soaked with sweat and fluids from decomposition. The stench inside the trunk was overpowering. The later examination confirmed the cause of death was asphyxiation. The investigation quickly led to an acquaintance, a tenant of hers involved in a money dispute. He had arranged to meet her to discuss the debt. When they couldn't reach an agreement, he struck her in the head. Thinking she was dead, he panicked, stuffed her body into the trunk, and drove it away from his place to dispose of it. He didn't realize that the blow was not what killed her. 8. Marsha P. Johnson, the iconic activist who vanished for many days in the river. Marsha P. Johnson was a legendary performer and civil rights activist, forever linked to the Stonewall riots and a pioneering figure in the fight for LGBTQ+ rights in America. In late June 1992, after the Pride March in New York, she suddenly disappeared as if swallowed by the crowded city. In the days that followed, friends and fellow activists began sharing information about her and calling for a search. They even sought help from the police. On July 6, 1992, after 6 days, Marsha P. Johnson's body was found floating in the Hudson River near the West Village area. The river was wide with slow-moving water, so her body wasn't badly battered, but thick seaweed had accumulated around her neck and shoulders. Green patches wrapped tightly around her, swaying with the murky water. Her skin had turned a pale gray with mottled purple streaks. Her stomach was slightly bloated, pressing against her torn and soaked dress. Her body floated gently, rising and falling with the current. Her swollen face still retained some of her familiar features. Her eyes were half closed, with the cloudy haze of death inside. Her performance outfit still showed patches of bright color, but the river water had made it heavy and covered it with mud. The smell of the river mixed with the odor of the decomposing body created an indescribable feeling. Police quickly ruled it a suicide, a conclusion many people could not accept. Reports from passers-by about someone who looked like Marsha being chased were never properly investigated. The case sparked outrage for an entire decade. An icon of the movement, someone who had always been on the front lines, had left in mystery and lack of transparency. It wasn't until 2012 that the case was reopened as an unsolved file. But too much time had passed to find clear evidence, and what happened during those 6 missing days remains in the shadows. 7. Ryan Singleton, the rising model who was found 74 days after disappearing in the desert. Ryan Singleton was a standout model from Atlanta who walked major runways in New York and had begun making his way into Hollywood films as a promising face. In early July 2013, he drove from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. It seemed like a simple trip, but his car suddenly broke down in the desolate area of Death Valley. The temperature was extreme, the air bone dry. Police took him to a gas station in Baker, California, and from that moment, he vanished. No one saw which direction he went. There was no further contact. In the first few days, his family still held on to hope. Search teams swept the entire area, but the vast, harsh desert seemed to swallow every trace. As days passed, hope slowly faded. 74 days later, on September 14, 2013, a group of hikers discovered Ryan Singleton's body in the barren land, about 2 miles from the Baker gas station. The extreme heat had turned his body almost into a dried skeleton. His skin had shrunk tight against the bones into a thin, darkened layer. His rib cage showed white. A few scraps of dried tissue remained on his pelvis and thighs. His internal organs were completely gone. His face had shrunk into a skull. His eye sockets were empty. His teeth were still there, but the gums had dried and darkened. His clothes were torn, pulled by wind, sand, and apparently animals. Some small bone fragments were scattered around, indicating the body had been disturbed by wild animals. Experts said the desert conditions had caused the body to decompose in an unusual way. Animals may have carried away many parts, but suspicions continued to spread. His family refused to accept the simple explanation. Theories about involvement in an organ trafficking ring began to surface, but there was no clear evidence. In the end, it was concluded that he died from exhaustion in the desert before being torn apart by wild animals. 6. DJ Young Slade, the young talent who left home in silence and was found many days later at the bottom of a pond. DJ Young Slade was a rising music producer and DJ in Atlanta, the son of Lil Jon. He graduated from NYU and was building his own career at a pace that caught everyone's attention. On the morning of February 3, 2026, he left his home in Milton. He didn't take his phone. He left no signs of trouble. His silent departure opened a series of days that left everyone around him in confusion. His family quickly realized something was wrong. Complete loss of contact was not like him at all. A missing person report was filed. Authorities got involved immediately. Search teams spread out across the surrounding area. Places near the house were thoroughly checked. Every path and empty lot was examined, but there were no traces. No one knew where he had gone after leaving home. Speculation began to appear. Maybe he had an accident. Maybe he was in some kind of mental distress. But everything remained just scattered pieces. On February 6, 2026, dive teams discovered his body at the bottom of a pond in Mayfield Park, not far from his house. The still, cold, low-oxygen water had kept his body relatively intact in the early stages of decomposition. When brought up, his skin still held some color, but looked pale. Light purple discoloration appeared on his back and hips from lying on the bottom for so long. His face was almost unchanged. His eyelids were half closed. His pupils were cloudy. His mouth was slightly open, with small bubbles around his lips. His body was stretched out straight, fingers slightly curled, still holding a half-finished motion. His clothes were stuck with soft mud from the pond bottom. The fabric was heavy with water, clinging tightly to his body. A few small creatures clung around his ankles, leaving tiny marks. The initial conclusion showed no signs of external impact, but that didn't make the story any easier to understand. To this day, no one understands why a young man with a bright future ahead would end his life in a place just minutes from home. What happened in that short time remains beneath the still water, with no clear answer. 5. Everett Jackson, the young basketball player who was swept downstream. Everett Jackson was a standout basketball player for LSU Eunice, highly regarded for his potential and expected to go far in a professional career. On June 11, 2022, he and his girlfriend went tubing on the Payette River in Idaho. It was supposed to be a light outdoor trip. The water looked calm, but strong undercurrents were hidden below. When they missed the exit point, the situation quickly became dangerous. The fast current pulled them along faster. His girlfriend managed to grab a tree branch. Everett Jackson was pulled out of sight, sinking into the cold water. Rescue teams responded quickly. Boats were deployed. Drones scanned along the current. Divers tried to reach the deeper sections. But the river conditions were too dangerous. Cold water, strong flow, poor visibility. All efforts were hindered. His family flew in from Louisiana to Idaho. They joined the search directly. Each day felt endlessly long. Hope slowly faded, but no one gave up. On the afternoon of June 19, 2022, exactly 8 days later, a volunteer found Everett Jackson's body washed up on the grassy riverbank about 2 miles downstream from where he was swept away. His body lay on its side, partially caught in tall grass. The cold river water had kept his body relatively intact, but the constant impacts against underwater rocks had left long scrapes on his back and shoulders. His skin was deathly pale with purplish-red patches from blood pooling underneath. His face was slightly twisted to one side, with his nose and chin mildly swollen. A few small cuts were visible on his head from hitting sharp rocks. His hair was full of river sand and dead leaves. His right hand was tightly clutching a torn piece of fabric from his girlfriend's shirt. His legs were stretched out stiff, toes curled hard from the low temperature. His clothes clung tightly to his body, heavy with water, with a large tear at the hem from friction with the strong current. 4. Speaker Knockerz, the young star who vanished mysteriously and was found many days later in his own garage. Speaker Knockerz was an independent rapper and producer who made a huge impact online. He was seen as a pioneer of melodic rap, racking up hundreds of millions of views without major label support. On the evening of March 4, 2014, he drove off in his black Camaro and disappeared from sight. No one thought it would be the last time he was seen. 24 hours later, his phone could no longer be reached. Messages went unanswered. The silence stretched on unusually long. His family began to worry. A missing person report was filed quickly. 2 days passed in a state of tension. Fans on social media spread the information at lightning speed. His name was everywhere. Everyone hoped for positive news, but there were no useful leads. On March 6, 2014, the truth was revealed in the most unexpected place, right inside his own house. Speaker Knockerz' body was found lying in the garage, not somewhere far away, not in a remote area. He was in the familiar space he walked in and out of every day. His body lay on its back on the cold concrete floor. The enclosed, warm space had caused his body to enter decomposition quickly. His two hands were slightly curled in front of his chest. The skin on his face and neck still had a faint pink tone, but had begun showing small purple spots from blood settling. His mouth was slightly open, with a streak of dried foam on his lower lip. His face was almost unchanged. His eyelids were half closed. His pupils were cloudy. His clothes were clean, with no signs of struggle, only a large, dried sweat stain on the back of his shirt. Notably, there were no signs of external impact and no evidence of an attack. Theories began to emerge: a sudden heart attack, or an underlying health issue that had gone unnoticed, but everything remained speculation. 3. Eddie Griffin, the NBA star who crashed into a train at night and was identified many days later with a burned body. Eddie Griffin was a standout NBA player, selected 7th overall in the 2001 draft. He was known for his impressive defense and shot blocking with the Houston Rockets and Minnesota Timberwolves. In the early morning of August 17, 2007, a horrific crash tore through the night in Houston. An SUV slammed straight into a moving train. The impact was so violent that the vehicle shattered, metal twisted, the fuel tank exploded. Flames erupted fiercely, engulfing the entire car in seconds. The fire burned non-stop. The temperature rose so high that everything inside was nearly erased. When rescue crews arrived, the SUV was just a blackened, deformed mass of metal. Inside, the body was almost completely incinerated, impossible to identify by sight, and there were no papers or clear signs to determine identity. Reports described the condition of the body in ways that made people shudder. The body had burned into a shiny black mass. Skin and flesh had shrunk and cracked into hard patches. In some places, white-gray bone was exposed. The face no longer held its original shape. The eye sockets were empty. The teeth remained but showed cracks from the intense heat. Arms and legs had curled up from the muscle reaction to heat, forming a rigid, bent posture. A few fingers had shattered from the combined force and heat. Clothes, car seats, and interior materials had melted and fused to the body like a thick black shell. The smell of burning spread throughout the area. In the first hours, they only knew there was one victim, a name that didn't yet exist in the records. The body was taken for examination. The identification process faced major difficulties due to the severe damage. Skin and soft tissue were almost completely destroyed. It took 4 days before the identity was confirmed through dental records. It was Eddie Griffin. No one imagined that a star who had played in front of tens of thousands of fans would go missing for 4 days without anyone realizing. 2. Jacques Freitag, the high jump champion who was found many days later in the bushes with an ending that made people shudder. Jacques Freitag was a South African high jump legend with 1/4 black ancestry. He was the only person to win world titles at U18, U20, and senior levels. He stood at the peak in 2003 and was considered a great pride of his country's sports. After retiring in 2013, his life began to spiral. From the bright lights of the stadium, he gradually disappeared from public view. Freitag fell into despair due to drug addiction and homelessness, making the image of the former champion seem distant. On June 17, 2024, he left his mother's house with a strange man to go to a job interview. A decision that seemed like it could save his life, but instead opened the door to tragedy. No one knows exactly what happened afterward, only that he completely lost contact. His family began searching. Appeals were posted everywhere. Time passed with increasing heaviness. Each day brought them closer to the worst outcome. For 2 full weeks, there were no clear leads. On July 2, 2024, after 15 days, Jacques Freitag's body was discovered in a thick bush near Zandfontein Cemetery in Pretoria West. His body lay curled up among dense, thorny bushes. The dry air combined with the harsh daytime sun had partially mummified the body. His skin had shrunk tight against the bones, clearly showing how much thinner he had become compared to his once impressive height. Bullet wounds through his chest and abdomen left dark holes with hardened, dry edges. Insects swarmed around, constantly moving across the skin and wounds. His face had turned gray, cheeks deeply sunken. His eyes had sunk into their sockets, leaving two dark, dried points. His lips were cracked wide open, exposing pale teeth. His arms and legs were curled and rigid from lying so long on the dry ground. His clothes were covered in red dust and dry leaves. The thick, thorny bushes made access difficult. The examination team had to cut dozens of branches to reach inside. The investigation showed he had been shot multiple times, but to this day, no one knows who the killer was or what the motive was. 1. Thomas Sankara, the president who was assassinated and found nearly 30 years later in a mass grave. Thomas Sankara was the iconic leader of Burkina Faso, famous for his bold reforms in education, land, and women's rights. He became a symbol of the African liberation movement. On October 15, 1987, a coup took place. In the chaos, Thomas Sankara was killed along with his close associates. His body was taken away in silence. Immediately afterward, a cover-up plan was carried out. The bodies were hastily buried in unmarked graves with no headstones or identifying signs. Their entire existence was erased from history. In the years that followed, all information was tightly controlled. The burial location became a state secret. Time passed. 10 years, 20 years, nearly 30 years. The story gradually faded into silence, but it never completely disappeared. In 2015, when the old regime fell, the search process was restarted. An excavation was carried out in Ouagadougou. The hard red earth was dug up little by little. In the heavy atmosphere, everyone knew they were about to touch a part of history that had been buried for too long. When the remains were brought up, the scene left many people stunned. The skeleton was stained with red earth. A few scraps of dried skin still clung to the bones like old paper. The skull was intact, with clear evidence of multiple bullet wounds. The pelvis and thigh bones were heavily damaged. Some cervical vertebrae still had remnants of rotting rope attached. Forensic experts worked meticulously. They cleaned each bone, using light and specialized equipment to determine identity. The final result confirmed what many had long suspected. Thomas did not die of illness. He was shot multiple times during the assassination. The truth finally came to light after nearly 3 decades. Those 15 names were once known around the world, yet they ultimately left in solitude. And what haunts people is not just the death itself, but the period of time they were missing while no one knew. If you've followed this far, you surely have your own thoughts about which story sent the biggest chill down your spine. Feel free to leave a comment below and share what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos, where the hidden corners of the world of celebrities will continue to be brought into the light.